2023 has definitely been one of the greatest years in gaming in recent memory. You could even make the argument that it's the greatest year in gaming that we've ever had. Every single month has had so many incredible indie and AAA games popping up, it's been impossible to keep up with everything. But roguelites have also had a fantastic year. And of course, in this video, I want to highlight my top 10 roguelites of this year. I made a video like this last year, but this time around, we're only going to focus on new releases of games or games that have left early access. I'll have a small section for a few early access games that you should keep your eye on, but the top 10 list is all new, fully released games. And just remember, this is my personal list, so don't take it too seriously. If I missed your favorite game, just let me know in the comments. Starting off this list at number 10, we have 30XX, the Mega Man inspired roguelite. It fully released August 9th, and this is a side-scrolling platformer roguelite that has 8 levels total, and you can do these levels in any order you want, but the difficulty scales heavily, and the endgame is extremely challenging. Throughout a run, you gain items from bosses, power-ups for your main weapons to change the type of shot you have, and you can even play this game in co-op if you want to. Everything, even down to the music, is inspired by a classic Mega Man game. But even if you don't like Mega Man and just more so a fan of some hard side scrollers, it's a game for you to try. The meta progression is quite good as well and doesn't make you totally overpowered, and it's not too grindy. It's one of those games I wish I played more of this year, but a great pickup for about $15 US. Coming in at number 9, we have a Nice Death, which left early access this year on March 22nd, and is a game I do enjoy. Just not as much as before, because this game was number 3 last year when I included early access titles. But I felt like this game added too much for a satisfying run. A win and run can take well over an hour, and the builds feel very RNG heavy, even without any difficulty enhancers on. And even without the difficulty enhancers, the game is quite hard, but you can enable them if you win a run. Platforming and combat is very good, the graphics are phenomenal, and the amount of variety available in builds with spells and then weapons with a cooldown and start in sights, it's good, and all of them can be upgraded with in-game currencies. I 100% didn't enjoy it as much as I did before, but I still think it's a good game, worth a pickup, and one of the best roguelites I've played this year. And it's only about $20 US when not on sale. At number 8, we have Wizard with a Gun, which was one of my most hyped roguelites of the year, but it fell short in some areas. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game at all. It released October 17th, and this game you play as a wizard setting back time to help stop the world ending from the main enemy Arcane. The runs are short and sweet, but you travel through multiple biomes, with each biome housing new and stronger enemies, but it also allows you to find better versions of your weapons and tons of materials for crafting. This seems more like a crafting simulator than a roguelite at times, but outside of a run is just as important as inside of a run, as you set up a camp filled with stations to craft and places to store your items. I do like the variety in bullet types with this game, as you only have 4 weapons total. The changes in bullets helped keep the variety fresh. My biggest gripe with this game was the crafting and storing as a whole. When I played, you could not universally use your storage to craft easily unless the storage was right next to the crafting station. I found myself getting lost trying to find that one item I need to craft with countless times, and it was just frustrating. The combat as a whole was a little simple and got tedious, but the game lasted about 15 hours total, and in my time, it was good fun. It is a little pricey compared to other games at $25 US, but even with my negatives, I'd suggest this game, especially on sale. You can also play this game in co-op with a friend, but I decided to play in single player, like usual. Number 7, we have Wall World, my favorite cousin, the Dome Keeper. In Wall World, you travel through multiple mines, collecting all sorts of materials and upgrades, all while fighting Leviathan monsters that attack your spider dome. A successful run can take about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, but this game has a story to it where you collect 5 crypto keys, and after collecting all 5, you reach the top of the wall. In every run, you get multiple different upgrades that benefit you or your spider dome, and can even find a handful of weapons that all can be buffed as well. And outside of a run has tons of meta progression that help make the runs go a lot smoother. The game even had some DLC that added a new side story and a new boss. I'll say though, it wasn't too long, and it took about an hour and a half for every single run. That was my biggest complaint with the game, is how long those runs can take. But overall, I think it's an incredibly good game, especially for the solid price of $7 US. I've gotten almost 30 hours of entertainment from it. It's a good, cozy game, and if you like the Dome Keeper, you'd probably love this. Next, we have my favorite top-down shooter since Enter the Gungeon that I feel like a lot of people probably miss. At number 6, we have Voidago. It released out of early access June 8th and is another game that I feel flew under a lot of people's radars. You start the game off by playing as Drash, and it's your job to stop the spread of corruption. You play through 4 worlds and then a boss world. You can unlock more characters as you play more, and inside a run has plenty of weapons and power-ups for you to find. Also, I'll say this game has some of the most unique boss fights, as you fight a boss until you get its health down to a certain amount, and then the boss runs off to a new location. This game is 100% a game that I need to play more of, and hopefully will be able to when my backlog is a little empty. But let's be honest, is the backlog ever empty? I may not have played it too much compared to other games on this list, but this this is 100% one of the best roguelites this year. I mean, look at those Steam reviews. That's impressive, and it's only $19 US. But I do think the graphics may turn some people away. But number 5 is RoboQuest, another game that left early access and released into 1.0 on November 7th. This game is just charming. The Doom-style combat going through multiple different arenas and the Borderlands-style graphics make the atmosphere of this game incredible. Inside your runs, you collect power cells to upgrade yourself or weapons, level up with XP to gain a perk, collect golden wrenches for meta progression, and kill a lot of robots. This game branches off to so many different paths with so many different levels, and each level having so many different secrets for you to find, it'll take a long handful of hours to see absolutely everything. And on top of that, it has incredible meta progression, difficulty enhancers, gadgets for even more buffs, and even unlockable characters, all with different starting abilities. I honestly love playing this game, and I'm surprised it's only at number 5, but I've had a blast with it and want to see how far I can go, but I'm constantly bouncing between games. But this is one you should 100% pick up, especially if you crave some fast, smooth FPS roguelike gaming. It is $25 US, but 100% worth every penny. Next, we have a game I was deciding if I should or should not include in this list as a whole, but in the end decided to include it as it's technically a remake, but does have a lot of new elements to it, and a lot of people probably have played it for the first time with it coming out like this. And you probably saw this coming, but number 4, we have Risk of Rain Returns. It released November 8th, and it's an incredible remaster of the original Risk of Rain game. And personally, I enjoyed this one more than Risk of Rain 2. But like Risk of Rain, you go through multiple worlds with each world housing tons of enemies and a boss to spawn once you reach the teleporter. Every level is filled with items to buy, with money you get from killing enemies, shrines to fail, and can even buy some drones and find collectibles. But the longer you take, the harder the game becomes. And honestly, the biggest negative for me in Risk of Rain Returns is sometimes the worlds feel a little empty and you waste 4 minutes trying to find some items with all your extra money, and then you end up teleporting and getting just a little bit of XP, but that's not the biggest deal in the world. Honestly, this arcade looking platform looter shooter is amazing. Very hard, but amazing. It has tons of characters to unlock to keep replayability as high as ever, and even added a new game mode called Providence Trials, which are challenges based around a certain class or the ability of a said class. They're challenging but rewarding as you unlock new abilities to use on the classes and runs. If you like Risk of Rain 2 or don't like it because of a third-person shooter and more open world, I think you should try this one out. Honestly, everyone should try this one out. It's amazing and only costs $15. Now at number 3, I feel like we may get a little controversial here, but you gotta remember this is my list, so not everyone's going to agree with it, so just get ready for that. But coming in at number 3 is Darkest Dungeon 2, the totally different sequel of Darkest Dungeon. It released out of early access on May 8th, and a lot of loyal fans of the original aren't a fan of this one. And I'll agree, it's not as good, but I personally enjoyed Darkest Dungeon 2 a lot. The game has 5 chapters total, with each chapter taking about 4 hours if you have a win and run, and you travel through 3 to 5 levels in your stagecoach, with each level being filled with enemies to fight, hero stories to unravel, and travelers you can choose to help or not. I will say the runs in this game can be quite long and very exhausting if you lose your run, as the game does have a lot of RNG in its turn-based combat, but the combat's very similar to the original game. And almost all the characters from the original game are available to play as in this one. You buff them inside a run between levels in the inn and try to make sure they have a good relationship as well, which is another thing most people tend to not like, where if your characters have a good relationship, they can buff each other's attacks, and you can expect what happens if they have a negative relationship. This game also has an interesting meta progression with candles, as you earn candles at the end of a run, and they are used to unlock new character buffs, new items, new relics, new cosmetics, and even new difficulties, and pets for your stagecoach if that's your thing. The meta progression added a lot for me, and I really enjoyed my time with it. It took me almost 60 hours to clear the 5 chapters, but I loved it as I love Darkest Dungeon. Biggest negative with this game though is that it's $40 when it's not on sale, which is a lot, but I still love it. Now initially Darkest Dungeon 2 was gonna be my number 2 game, but I felt this next game deserved it more after playing it a lot more once it released in the 1.0. So number 2 for top roguelites of this year for me is Astral Ascent. It was released in the 1.0 on November 14th, and this game has a lot. It's most commonly compared to Dead Cells with its combat and platforming, and I can see it. But Astro has so much going on. Win and runs take about an hour as you travel through 4 biomes, collecting stars, keys, spells, and gambits, while fighting zodiac signs as the bosses at the end of each level. And the first 4 biomes all have 3 different bosses, and then the 5th level has the same boss every time. But the bosses are so crazy to fight all the different movesets they have to memorize. It's insane. But inside the runs, you can have up to 4 spells that all cost mana, which recharges with basic attacks. And the spells can also have gambits, which act as buffs for them. And those gambits can even have elemental effects. Even with that, there's still so much inside of a run, balancing currencies, fighting mini bosses, collecting auras and echoes. There's so much, and it's so fun. Can't tell you everything that this game has to offer. I made a video on this game if you want to go watch that, but trust me, inside of a run is very in-depth and it's very satisfying to play. The game also has true endings, but you can't see the true endings for any of the characters until Destiny level 6, which is the difficulty enhancers. So you need to clear the game 6 times before being able to see the true ending, but the Destiny levels don't make it too hard up until level 6, but it adds a lot of replayability for me and a goal for me to see every character's true ending. That doesn't even talk about outside of a run with the meta progression, story fragments, character customization, and 4 characters with all unique unlocks. If you're craving an action platform roguelite with so much depth to it, you will love this game. I know I do. It's $25, but with how much content it's in the game, you will get your money's worth so fast. Now, before we jump into number 1, I'd like to do a few honorable mentions to some early access games that I have played a little bit this year, and really they're games that you should keep your eye on, just in case you don't like early access. First, we have one of my favorite Horde survivors with Halls of Torment. It's a Horde survivor game, so you survive X amount of time while killing endless amounts of enemies, but Halls of Torment offers good meta progression, a good challenge across all levels, items to buff you in a run, along with upgrades on level up, and a lot of unlockable characters, all with different strengths. I'm excited for this game's 1.0 release. And next we have Tape the Tape, which is a huge game for sports fans. Not really much anyone else, but I gotta appeal to these sports fans. It's an arcade style hockey game where you play as Angus McShaggy in a run, and you play through 3 worlds with a Slay the Spire-esque pick your path after every game. It's rather short, but has some good unlocks with other star players to have on your team, items that you can use in the game, and buffs for Angus. But the runs do not change at all. It's a good fun hockey game that I played a good amount of time with, and any sports fan would love to try this one. But a negative is the devs stopped updating it throughout the summer, but seem to potentially be back as of making this video. It's definitely a game to keep your eye on, especially if you're a fan of sports. Next, let's quickly discuss Raven's Watch. I only played it when it first released, but it had a lot of updates with adding new characters and even more levels. In my short time, the playable characters were all unique and quite fun to play. First level got a little tedious as it felt more like a demo than early access, but it seems the devs are constantly adding more content, and it feels like a MOBA to me at times with how the game plays, but it's a good time and one to watch out for. And it's also made by the dev team behind Curse of the Dead Gods. If you like that game, you might want to try this one out. It's definitely one that I'm keeping my eye on. And our last honorable mention in early access is a silly game, but still good fun, and it's Crab Champions. This is another one I haven't played too much, but more so waiting for early access to end. But you play as a crab going through multiple islands filled with tons of combat rooms to fight in, and throughout the run you get lots of upgrades while having the sickest movement a crab could have. Some people may view this game kind of as a meme, but honestly the movement was very nice, the combat was great, and the meta progression is also quite a lot of fun. It also has tons of starting guns. It'll be very interesting to see where this game goes. And the number 1 roguelite this year for me, it's one I didn't expect to like as much as I did, but I feel most people will agree with me on this. The number 1 roguelite of 2023 is Brotato, by far the best Horde survivor game you can play. It was released out of early access June 23rd, and you can play this basically anywhere. This Horde survivor does it perfectly. The length of a run is about 30 minutes long if you win, and you don't want to go to endless mode. The amount of buffs and upgrades you can get inside of a run, the amount of different versatile runs you can have in the game, it's incredible. Without any mods, the game has 44 playable starting characters that you unlock via achievements, but every character has different starting buffs and weapons that help make the game so easy to replay, as every run has a true unique feeling to it. On top of that, the difficulty enhancers aren't anything too crazy, as they just add some bosses and elite enemies, but overall this game is incredible, and you can get it for a solid $4. It's by far the cheapest game mentioned in this video, and on top of that, I think it's the best one. It has the best replayability, the simplistic runs, not really any meta progression, but for a game like this you don't need it. If you like Horde survivors or want to try the best one, this is it. Brotato is the best roguelite that released this year. Plus the graphics are awesome. And that's my top 10 roguelites of 2023. You have to remember, this is my opinion and my list. I am well aware I've missed some incredible games like Ember Knights, Cobalt Core, Backpack Heroes. The list goes on. If you want early access games, Death Must Die, that just came out. That looks incredible as well. So if your favorite game isn't on this list, I'm sorry. I can only play so many games and play through them enough to justify a ranking for them. But either way, this has been an incredible year for gaming, and especially for roguelites. I appreciate you watching this video or watching my channel as a whole, where I kind of play everything. Thanks for a great year, and well, Extra special shout out to the people that support me on Patreon still. That extra support really does help a lot, so thank you. And yeah, that's all. I'll see you next time.